Wow. Yeah, it's quite striking that, like you say, that sometimes the actions don't connect with the words, and during that whole time, just innocent people are being killed. And like you say, collateral damage or not collateral damage. We can talk about moral equivalency or not. And I think that those topics we can get further in the conversation because those are more of the emotional fueled themes in the conversation. But now we're trying to get on the first principles and trying to shed a light on what's truly happening. And like you say, Tomas, there are so many facets to this conflict, both within Israel, outer Israel, the neighboring countries, like you say. How is this piece of land, the Levant, like you talk about it? This is the first time I ever read about this piece of land talking about the Levant, so I appreciate that knowledge. It's such an important piece of land, and so I want to get to the geographics of it all that you touch on your article, Will Israel be at war, Thomas? That why is this piece of land so important?
Yeah, and I think most people miss this, and it's a crucial part to understand what's happening. There's something very special about the Levant, which is the basically the easternmost coast of the Mediterranean. It's where you have Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Palestine, uh, southeastern Turkey. Cyprus is also frequently bundled into that. It's a narrow piece of land uh, that has mountains that catch the wind from the Mediterranean. Why does that matter? Because by catching the wind, it also catches the moisture inside of it, and that rains down, and that means that the land is fertile. And it's a very narrow strip of fertile land, and just behind that, there's just desert. This matters because the strip is big enough to have a sizable population, but not massive, so it cannot be huge. And it's surrounded by areas that are much more fertile. Egypt has, I think, 110 million people today, right? It's like 200, 300 kilometers away from the Levant. And it's been around for 5,000 years because it was so fertile. Mesopotamia, today Iraq, was one of the places where agriculture and civilizations were born because it was um, so fertile. And the same thing is true for nowadays what's Turkey, right? Anatolia. So what's happening is you have a piece of land that is reasonably fertile, but it's surrounded by other areas that are actually more fertile, which means that they create massive populations.
Mm.
And so you have Persia, which is today Iran, Mesopotamia, which is today Iraq, Anatolia, which is today Turkey, and Egypt, all four surround the Levant. They will always be more populous, they will always be more rich, and any of the four, if they want to expand, they will need the Levant. It's in the middle, and so they will need it. What this means is for the last 2 to 3,000, actually 2 to 4,000 years, there's been empires conquering the Levant, and for the last 2,000 years, up till 1947, it was only empires.
Mm.
Only empires have been conquering this. With one more additional thing, which is the Levant obviously is on the coast, and so whoever wants to control the Mediterranean needs to control this area too. So then you have Romans, you have the Byzantines, today you have the Americans. Whoever controls the sea needs to control the Levant. And so you have five powers, four regional, Iran today, Iraq, Turkey, and Egypt, and then whoever is in the sea who want to fight for this piece of land that is relatively small and not very populous, but populous enough to matter. And so that's one of the reasons why this area has been one of the most conflict-ridden in the history of mankind.
Wow, it's like you say, it's one of the most unseen aspects of the whole conflict. It's the first time I really read about it, so I appreciate that. And because we often get caught up in a right way, like in a correct way about the cultural significance of it all. But again, we fail to realize that this might be also like a geopolitical, well, geopolitical, it's a weird term using it now, but it's a strategic point where certain powers could expand, and this is like a bridge between them and the
I think
fertility.
what you're saying is I think so important, and it goes to the core of a lot of what I try to do in uncharted territories. And I think it can be summarized in this way. Nearly every narrative that tries to explain the news tries to use a lens of good and evil and of specific people doing specific things. And I do not believe this is what moves the world. I believe what moves the world usually are systems, are mechanics. And if you don't understand them, you don't see them. What you see is the humans doing the actions, but you miss the mechanics, and then you cannot solve anything, right? There are mechanistic reasons why Israelis and Palestinians are at war. Like there's mechanistic reasons, and if you don't understand them, you cannot solve the problem.